Hello, and thank you for downloading this episode of SUPfm. We really enjoy producing this podcast for the love of the sport and to benefit the worldwide stand-up paddle community. If you like what we're doing and would like to support the podcast to cover some costs and keep the episodes flowing, then please help us by contributing on Patreon at www.patreon.com/SUPfm. And if you make a contribution to us, we'll be sure to mention you on the air. Cue the title sequence.
Aloha and welcome to SUPfm, the podcast for stand-up paddleboarders everywhere. So with no further ado, let's get out on the water and on with the show. Here are your hosts, Nick and Simon.
Recording is in progress.
So this is really exciting, isn't it, Simon? I mean, when did we do this last? In 2015, and now we're getting back to Series 2 of the SUPfm podcast.
I know, it's absolutely fantastic. And things have really moved on since then, sort of personally and, in terms of my immersion in the sport. So there's so much more to discuss and so many more people to discuss it with.
Absolutely. Well, tell me, because I mean, since 2015, just catching up quickly, I've sold my stand-up paddle school down here in the Algarve, my touring company. We've stopped the Guadiana Challenge, which was this incredible event that we did for 32 kilometers every year on the eastern border with Spain. And now I'm pursuing other projects in surfing, actually. And how about you? What are you doing?
Well, I'm still running SUP, which has been fantastic. A really, really exciting clothing brand from here in the UK. We've built up quite a number of international, representatives of the brand, particularly in Germany. So that's been fab. I've become an instructor, which has added an additional huge element of fun to the whole immersion in the sport, because effectively introducing new people to the sport's just been a huge privilege. But so
where do you instruct? Is it near your house?
Yeah. There's a very, very good friend of mine owns a school called New Forest Paddle Sport Co, and we've sort of spent quite a bit of time in each other's company, going out having various different adventures. But he started a school for SUP, and it really has taken off incredibly. He's managed to get a whole load of fantastic instructors, most of which are sort of homegrown and trained by SUPer, which is one of the main SUP organisations here. And he's got a fantastic location, which is right next to a castle down here on the coast, but it's incredibly sheltered and just the perfect place to teach. So I think spending all of that amount of time with new suppers, introducing holiday makers to the sport, has been brilliant. And like me, after my first unpromising exposure to the sport to start with, a lot of people have gone on to buy their own SUPs and join local SUP clubs and just continued their journey. So the instruction bit has really been fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
It sounds amazing. So that's right down in the south coast of England, is it? Just below London?
That's right, just below London, on the south coast. So we're on the edge of a national forest called the New Forest, and as in the way that they name things in the UK, the New Forest has been round since about 1066 as a hunting forest, so it's not particularly new. But there's a lot of very, very unspoilt coastline down here. And that there's a whole load of different places to SUP. So if you are on holiday, you happen to be in the UK on the south coast, between the Hampshire and Dorset border, there are lagoons, there are lakes, there's even on occasion a very small amount of surf, which causes huge excitement down here. I know.
That sounds fantastic. Like the Algarve.
Well, yeah, it's fantastic when the waves are rolling in, and we're not talking about Maui type sizes here. The excitement is huge. Everyone's down there, and it's with everyone out there as well, it's actually quite a nice surf scene down here. There isn't some of the sort of snobbery and that goes on in a lot of surf spots. So no, it's fantastic. So Nick, you've obviously sold the SUP school. Have you managed to get out at all on a board?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, just like you in the south of England, we don't have massive amounts of surf down here in the south coast of the Algarve. Most of the surf is in the west coast of Portugal. So I've been surfing regularly over the last few winters all around Faro, Villamora, and Albufeira, around all these breaks around here, which has been, we get really excited when it gets overhead high, and also when it's when it's shoulder height, it's wow, that's really exciting, which is great. So it's not super big, but it's exciting. And I've been paddling quite a lot. I used to do quite a few stand-up paddle expeditions, and I did two actually. One all the way across the Algarve for 160 kilometers, and then another one up in the center of Portugal down through the rivers. We did about, I think it was 265 kilometers, which was really exciting. And I'm dying to do that again. I just haven't managed to do one over the last couple of years. So definitely have to schedule some SUP camping trips. We've done some small stand-up paddle camping trips where we just paddle out to an island around here, because we've got lots of islands, like barrier islands, sleep the night and then come back. But nothing expedition-wise. How about you?
No, again, lots of plans, but nothing too massive. I think the biggest adventure, or the adventures for me, were sort of small and perfectly formed micro adventures, if you like. But I went through a process of supping every Friday morning for 12 months. Which was regardless of conditions, which was again a huge education. And quite cold actually on some occasions. When you've got to break the ice on the back of the van when you're getting in to come back from your supping session, it's been pretty cold out there.
Wow.
So yeah, and this is all down to the type of local conditions that we've got here and the opportunities. If it's too extreme in terms of weather, then the river tends to be a bit more sheltered. If you've got a wind blowing aggressively in a certain direction, then we can do a downwinder, which is hugely exciting. Obviously, if the waves are in the right direction, then it's a surf session, and sometimes it's just a conditioning session out there on the water, on the sea, with a little bit of chop. So in terms of sort of adventures, going out, selecting what the challenge is going to be this week, and dealing with it's been huge fun. But we went out on a bit of a micro adventure, didn't we, when I came over, because I came over to visit you.
Yes.
Back in 2015, and we had a fabulous overnighter.
Yeah, we just into one of the local lakes around here, and we just paddled into one of my regular camping spots and had a barbecue the night, and it was great. Yeah, it was good fun. We paddled back in the morning. It was nice. It was good. And then we actually went out for a paddle the next day, I think, on the coast, which is cool. So when you came over, we really managed to fit a lot of paddling in, which was great fun.
That was fantastic, and there's so many great spots to go in Portugal. I mean, the lake that we went on and which we camped next to, the thing that intrigued me was, first of all, the beautiful clear water, and second, that through the beautiful clear water you could see pretty much a village underneath, which had obviously been submerged when the hydroelectric lake had been set up. So it's quite an experience, really.
Yeah, there's tons of those lakes. So we actually got 6 major dams in the Algarve here, and they just flooded, and then the villages have to obviously be submerged. So obviously they moved the people out beforehand, but it's quite I didn't show you this, but there's a half submerged school which is just around the corner, and it's quite eerie. You paddle up, and you can actually paddle into the school and underneath the big building, and imagine what the kids were like playing around in back in the day.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
But back since 2015, when we were last doing the SUPfm podcast, obviously the stand-up paddle industry has changed quite a bit. What do you reckon the major changes have been?
Well, I think certainly from my perspective down here, and it does seem to be a hotbed of stand-up paddling down here on the south coast of the UK. I've seen a huge expansion in brands. So, back when we were doing it, there was, when we were doing the last podcast, there were all the major brands, obviously based on the windsurf brands who had sort of moved across. But there's a lot more sort of local and private brands of stand-up paddle boards now. I think in terms of accessibility, there are a lot more schools down here, so it's no longer as exclusive as it once was. It used to be when I was out and pumping my board up. I'm obviously a bit of a inflatable board specialist, but when I was out pumping my board up, I always got lots and lots of interest and so on, and people asking me what I was doing and what it was. But I think SUP's definitely entered the mainstream now. I think there are obviously some great things about that. The fact that the sport is growing is wonderful. I think there are some concerns as well, and having become an instructor and also having been put in certain situations that potentially could have led to a bit of harm. I think any sport on water, there needs to be quite a bit of knowledge and an understanding of what sort of risk you're putting yourself into. So I don't think there's a huge amount of knowledge amongst those people who are buying a cheap paddleboard about how to actually do it safely. And this is where the instruction thing comes in.
It's vital because it is a pretty easy thing to learn, but you're right, those skills to put them to practice in the environment and to be careful of the elements is obviously a vital thing that I think you and I have both grown up with. So it's something that, because I was just about to mention, if you go to Decathlon, which I'm sure you have in the UK as well and around the world, it's so easy. And everyone says to me, well, what paddleboard should I buy to start off? I said, well, why don't you just go into Decathlon? You can get one for €300 or pounds. And then you can walk away and start like that. But you're right. You don't get that level of experience and that level of training that you would if you went out with an instructor, if you just bought one of those and went straight out into the elements.
Exactly, and obviously as well, buying from a proper shop, you do get that support. You get a try before you buy. Even for the cheapest stand-up paddleboards, it's still quite an investment, and that you do get a level of quality with the established brands, which unfortunately you don't get with the other ones. And certainly, I've used quite a lot of different brands and tested quite a lot, and clearly, as you kind of use it more, as you use these paddle boards more, you can tell the difference between the boards. But it's those weekend warriors, those people who, well, not even weekend warriors, those people who just take their board out maybe a couple of times a year. I can sort of understand them going for a brand which is lesser known, but I'd really recommend that anyone doing that does go out and just gets taught not only just the safety basics, but also how to move around a board, because it makes it so much more fun when you do go out and have a session. If you've got a few skills, if you've built a bit more confidence, you've got a few skills to practice, because otherwise you just end up being sort of Bambi on ice and falling in all the time. Whereas if you've had a bit of coaching, then you can pretty much get past that point and do everything adeptly and also very safely.
And these days, there's probably a coaching school anywhere where there's water. I mean, it's just so popular these days. I know in the Algarve, we've certainly got a lot of stand-up paddling schools and tons of experts to give you advice. And I'm sure it's the same in the UK and wherever you are out in the world there where you live. So I know in the States, it's prevalent everywhere. So there's
absolutely
no excuse. But now with SUPfm, the podcast, who should we start interviewing? Because obviously everybody's changed. Back in the day when we were doing this Kyle Lenny was the world champion, and there were quite a different set of faces around in the stand-up paddle industry. Now, I was just browsing through SUPracer.com, which is a fantastic resource and run by a really cool guy, an Australian guy. and he does the world rankings. And I was just looking through the men's world rankings. Michael Booth, Connor Baxter is still up there. A guy called Bruno Hasulio. This is all obviously the 2019 leaderboard, because it's all been put on hold thanks to our friend the coronavirus. And then Tituan Puyu, he was still around back in the day.
He was, yeah.
And Lincoln Dews is a new guy from Australia as well. I never heard of him. So I haven't looked at these rankings for a while. And the women's, Olivia Piana from Italy, I think she is. And from France actually. Seychelles from the United States. Fiona Wilde, she was around back in the day.
Yep.
Sunny Honchard was back in the day as well. And April Zilg, I don't think I've heard of her, but it's quite amazing to see the change and so many new faces. Obviously, it's a young sport.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, it was quite a coup for us to get Kai Lenny on, because not only the SUP world champion, but also sort of out of the Laird Hamilton brigade of sort of experimenters with water technology. And the other thing which has changed quite a bit since our day is foiling, which seems to have taken over, kite surfing, windsurfing, and also SUP, which is something that people are getting more and more involved in.
Have you tried it yet,
down
Simon?
this way as well? No, I haven't. No, it's I've got some friends who have tried it, and some who are very, very good. But no, it's not something that I've tried. It's
what do people suggest is the best way to start? Is it being towed behind a boat?
I to be honest with you, I think we're probably going to have to get someone in to talk about foiling. Because I'm not sure. I've just seen these guys. I know that it's quite a way to fall if you do fall off, and I know that the foils can be quite sharp as well. So all sorts of levels of peril. But yeah, I mean, it's massive and it's growing. And while the technology is quite expensive at the moment, it seems to be getting cheaper as well. So that's another area which has really changed since our day.
So how much do you think you'd pay for a normal foil board?
Well, the foils themselves are over $1,000, and probably over 100,000 like British pounds.
100,000?
No, sorry, 1,000. 1,000. That would be very expensive. I'm sure you can buy them for 100,000, but yeah, no, they're pretty expensive. So yeah, quite a commitment.
It is. I was in Cape Town over a couple of months ago in South Africa, where I'm originally from, and went out surfing there on a beach called Muizenberg, and there's just tons and tons of surfers there. And I went out stand-up paddling, and also some foilers all over the place, stand-up paddle foilers, and these guys are just cruise everywhere, and it's dangerous. It really is. So I think you've got to be definitely quite aware of your surroundings when you're foiling, in case you don't slice people in two.
Exactly. But yeah, Kai Lenny, there's some great videos of him on YouTube, just basically. Well, I say paddling, but basically foiling up and down a river, just using his own momentum to drive himself forward, and it's just incredible the sort of movement you can get on those boards. So that would be something really interesting to cover, I think.
Absolutely, and I think races have changed quite a lot as well. I'm not sure what the World Stand-Up Paddle Championships are doing, but obviously with coronavirus, everything has been halted right now. But have you heard much about the World Tour, the World Stand-Up Paddle Tour?
I haven't. I think you're right. Everything is on hold, and we're just about going into the season now. I think the big surprise would be if anything is actually on. But it'd be worth catching up with the powers that be, and to find out what the plans are, and also what people are doing to keep fit during their time on the shore. I think the thing about stand-up paddle boarding during sort of coronavirus is affects not only the events, but also going out there anyway. I've seen lots of different guidelines. Most of these lockdown arrangements say you can go out for exercise, but there's a bit of a grey area, I think, with stand-up paddleboarding at the moment, where while if you're of a decent standard, it would be reasonable to go out. However, what you don't want to do is to have any unexpected situations which end up in you having to be rescued by lifeboat or anything like that, or put the emergency services under any additional stress. So certainly the consensus of the view amongst my paddle club and all the people I know down here is that we're just going to stay away from the shore. We're going to do dry land stuff only, because it's just not responsible.
I think that's the consensus for the world over. Is nobody's going out at all, and people are sort of naming and shaming them on social media, saying if you do go out, because you're spoiling it for everybody else. And there's been quite a few surfers actually being arrested on the beach in California. Guy was shot at in Costa Rica.
Really?
Yeah, it was a video on
excessive.
YouTube. It is a bit excessive, but they really are trying to shut it down. I mean, look, I don't get it either, because if you're going out, you're not exactly right next to other people and you're going out surfing, it's fine, you're far away. But obviously, just to try and keep things simple for everybody, they've said no go. So I haven't been paddling for 3 weeks. I've been locked in my house for 2 weeks and hardly gone out at all, to be honest.
Yeah. No, it's tough times.
Yeah, but people are doing some funky stuff in pools. And I see, actually, I was looking up Chase Kostelitz, who we interviewed about 5 years ago. And he's got a place in Costa Rica now, and he's just cruising around his pool, paddling, doing sort of some tailback race turns, and that's pivot turns.
Excellent. He was a nice guy to interview, wasn't he?
Yeah, a lovely chap, really nice. Oh, we should catch up with Chase and see if he can give us a bit of background, because I think he was involved in the Stand-Up Paddle Industry Association as well at the time.
He was chair of the racers organisation. So yeah, be interesting to see how he's got on and how that's evolved.
Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting to see from an industry point of view whether the industry has grown since 2015, because it was the fastest growing sport in the world at that time. And we were so proud of going around and saying to everybody, yeah, this is the fastest growing sport, you've got to get a hold of it. And Laird Hamilton was saying, oh, this is going to be bigger than surfing. And then I'm not sure, I think it seemed to plateau. I'm not sure if stand-up paddle had actually grown much since 2015. I may be wrong. I'd love to see the stats.
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly in terms of participation, because the level of involvement, versus surfing is relatively low. The learning curve isn't quite as steep. I'd be amazed if there weren't more people doing it. But I guess the challenge is how many people get to do it regularly, and most people aren't, near, a regular place where they'd go out. Yeah, absolutely. We'd need to see and check that one out.
So there's tons of people that we can interview to find out all this incredible information. I was also thinking about SUP events. You guys used to have a really good one with the Thames. I think it was a Thames Marathon, or something like 40 miles.
Yeah, SUP the Thames. There's some great events here. There's Head of the Dart, which is something that, again, my group get involved in every year. So it's the River Dart down in the sticky outy bit of England, and it's a tidal stretch, and the race runs either sort of upstream or downstream on different years. The last couple of years, I think it's been run. The wind's been so extreme that they've had to sort of cut it short, or at least sort of change the route slightly just to accommodate that. There's the Trent 100, which is 100-mile race down the River Trent, which sort of multi-day event, and
which is up in the north, right?
Yeah, sort of Midlandsy, so about halfway up.
Okay.
But Trent's one of our longest rivers. There's the Great Lakes, so the Scottish sort of coast to coast, going through Loch Ness and so on. That's another one which will probably be a victim of coronavirus as well. And again, that one, depending on the sort of prevailing wind direction, is either east to west or west to east. involves a few canals and so on, but going right the way across Scotland, coast to coast, is quite something.
Wow.
And then obviously supping the Thames is the big one. So big mass participation event. So loads and loads going on in the UK.
Have there been lots of people attending that SUP the Thames? I mean, because I know the one in Paris, I think they do it every single year in December or January, sometime in the winter. I think at maximum a couple of years ago, they had about 700 people there, which is fantastic.
Yeah, most of the events are limited, and most sell out within a very, very short time. So that they've remained hugely popular, and it's very difficult to actually get into them. The other one to mention is the SUP Club Championships, which happen every year on a huge lake up near London, and that always has a massive turnout as well. So this SUP racing scene's very, very exciting, and of course we have had some of the world tour events coming through London as well, mostly around the East End of London, where there's huge amount of development and lots of stuff going on. So it's been fab. I think Portugal again is it's been in the news quite a lot. Probably not your coast, but the big wave surfers have been out in force over the winter. It looks like.
Absolutely, yeah. Nazaré, just 60 kilometers north of Lisbon. There's obviously the largest wave in the world. Well, actually, it's probably about 100 kilometers north of Lisbon. And as far as surfing goes, I mean, we get the world tour comes in here for the ladies and the men's just after France. So we get a lot of surfing, but I'm not sure about any stand-up paddling. We used to have a thing where you'd cross the river in Lisbon, and across the Tejo River was 14-kilometer paddle, just for fun. And then, like I mentioned before, we've done the Guadiana Guadiana Challenge down here, which is the 32-kilometer paddle. And around Europe, the one I know about is in Paris, and there's also the Corinth Cup. I think it's called the Corinth Cup, where they race along the Corinth Canal, which is quite looks like a really exciting race to do in Greece. But I haven't heard of any other type of events apart from obviously is it the 11 cities in Holland?
Well, that's the classic, isn't it? That's that is the marathon to end all marathons.
There's a thing. I interviewed a guy who I interviewed a guy last time when we were just tailing off in 2015 with SUPfm, and it was quite a fascinating interview. But I never actually released it, so we're going to be able to release that now for the first time. And I don't know, we can release it pretty soon, actually, if not before. So it'll be interesting to hear about his experience in the 11 cities.
Yeah, absolutely, and that again is that the people who do it non-stop. So basically, the 11 cities is a race in Holland along the route of what was started off as a skating race. Over 100 kilometers. But you can either race it on a stand-up paddleboard on the canals as a multi-day event, or to do it non-stop. And we've interviewed. Certainly the first interview we had on there, he had done the non-stop and came second. So that was quite an achievement for that. Let me just trying to remember what his name
was. Ike France.
I think that was the unreleased one.
Yes.
Franz Orsi. So he was the first. So that was episode 12, and he was the one who we interviewed, who had done non-stop and come second.
Really?
But yeah,
okay.
but yeah. So he was a former windsurfer, and got into SUP and just banged out a 100-odd kilometer race, which is unbelievable. God knows what it did to his hands.
Yeah, I was chatting to him the other day, actually, France. I saw him up in Lisbon a while back. He's a fantastic guy, and he was actually the lead coach of the Portugal SUP team for some time. I'm not sure if he still is, but he's done great things for SUP in Portugal, which is great.
Brilliant. Good stuff. So looking forward, SUPfm, future episodes and so on. So obviously we've got this fantastic opportunity to get SUPfm back up and running. So in terms of interviews, obviously we're going to speak to the racers, industry stalwarts, people who are involved in SUP from a sort of administrative level as well. It'd be also very nice to speak to some brands, particularly around sort of construction and to find out what sort of developments are going on in terms of boards and paddles and so on.
And the interviews I'd really like to get stuck into as well are the adventures. And I know I was invited to paddle down the Zambezi River in Africa with a bunch of guys, which is I didn't go because it was quite far away. But it's also these guys were stand-up paddle surfing grade 5 rapids, which was quite intense. So
wow.
I'd love to chat to those guys and see how that trip turned out, because they have released a few videos of it. But it'll be nice to hear from them firsthand. But obviously, lots of other expeditions happening all over the place. I saw Casper Steinfath just went from Denmark to Norway the other day, and managed to complete it, which was quite an amazing mission in the middle of winter. So there's lots and lots of different adventures happening around the world, which we could get stuck into and listen on a blow-by-blow basis.
Absolutely, and it doesn't even have to be the sort of big organised ones. I mean, the Yukon is a classic race which SUP has joined up with all the kayakers and so on in the last few years, and I know that there's some people we can speak to about participation in that.
Do you want to participate in the Yukon 1,000-mile race?
I think there's a time limit on it, unfortunately, and with my old stand-up paddleboard, anything's possible. But that would be a hell of a journey, I think. I was eyeing up a French race actually this year, down in the south. So obviously that's not going to go ahead. But yeah, I think.
Whereabout would that have been? Was it in Marseille, around there?
No, it was. It's starting not far away from a place called Millau, which is there's a huge bridge that was constructed a few years ago, which is just absolutely spectacular. I think it's the highest bridge in the world or something like that. But there's a river that sort of runs obviously underneath that. I think the race is about 60 odd kilometres, so that would have been nice. I think the thing for me for French races is the wine at the refueling stations. That's my primary.
And some fromage.
Well, absolutely, yeah. The French really do these things right. Actually, I don't know whether that's true for that particular race. I know some of their running races, they do have the option of wine and pate at their feed stations, but certainly if they don't, it's something they should think about. So it's all good. I think these adventures, these structured adventures, but also sort of independent adventures that people go off on. And I know a compadre of yours, Spike Reed, we interviewed him about a coast to coast SUP he did with some friends across the UK through the canal network and out to the Thames. So there's every conceivable type of micro adventure available to anyone.
That's the wonderful thing about stand-up paddle. It's just so versatile. You can just take your paddle board anywhere and just go and venture out and see life from a new perspective. It's so exciting.
Exactly. So what would be great is that if anyone has suggestions, if anyone's got any really good stories that they think will inspire others, it would be great to get you on and to talk about it. And the fantastic thing I think about the culture and stand-up paddling generally is that it's not an exclusive club. It's one that includes everyone at all levels, and certainly that's something that we want this podcast to be all about. We don't want it to be about all of the elite racers, although it's fascinating to hear about the professional circuit. Like you, I'm really interested in all the adventures and how stand-up paddleboarding has changed people's lives, because it's certainly changed mine.
Myself as well. So you can find us on Instagram. We just launched a new Instagram called SUPfm Podcast. Twitter, we're at SUPfm Podcast as well, I think. And Facebook, also SUPfm Podcast. So you can get in touch with that for now through there. Although if you'd like to email us, you can also email us at simon.supfm@gmail.com and nick.supfm@gmail.com. So, yeah, thanks so much for listening. Is there any other parting words that you'd like to say, Simon?
No, I think I'm really excited to be back. Had such a great time speaking to all of the guys. And just to say that we're going to be putting all of those episodes back up, including some episodes which we hadn't previously published. So looking forward to moving forward.
Great. Excellent. Well, we'll see you next week when we'll interview somebody exciting. We're not quite sure exactly who that is, but we'll figure it out.
Excellent. All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's do it. You've got to hit stop on the record. I would love to see how this turns out.
Thank you for listening to SUPfm, the #1 podcast for stand-up paddlers wherever you are. If you like what you've heard, please leave us a review on iTunes. Until then, we'll see you on the water.